Great Power is calling for a change to elderly driver assessments. They claim the process for assessing driver capability is penalising some of the very people who need their licence the most. So in New Zealand, the driver licence renewal criteria require all licence holders to present a medical certificate confirming fitness to drive first at the age of 75, then 80, and then every 2 years following. Great Power's acting vice president is David Marshall, and he joins me on the show. Hello, David.
Hi, Lee. How are you?
I am good. Thank you so much for talking to me here, David. Can we start by saying, can you tell us what part exactly of the driver assessments do you want to see changed? Are we talking the cognitive tests?
Yes. And basically, it is so variable across New Zealand that the hurdle to get relicensed is quite different depending on which doctor you've got. But some have now insisted that every patient applying for their licence takes a cognitive test. And that is quite stressful for many of our older people, many of us who don't remember things that well, and being told in an address and you asked 3 times during the interview to repeat what it is, as well as other lists of names and drawing a clock face with a time on it, all these things people find irrelevant to their driving. And they get quite angry about it, some of them, some frustrated and cross with themselves for forgetting things. But it is quite stressful, and we believe this should only be used by a doctor if they believe the patient they know has perhaps early stage dementia, because that's what it's testing for.
Yeah. So David, I just want to check. I know there's a driver impairment test, cognitive test. There's the SIMARD MD and the Mini ACE.
Yes.
This is a variety. This is the two they use. Are they both used in New Zealand, or do you know, or is it the Mini ACE, the one that they use?
Okay, so the SIMARD MD was quite widely used by those doctors who are using the test, and it's been basically discredited by a number of clinical studies that have demonstrated that it is a poor predictor of someone's driving ability. So It means you get a lot of people being failed who then go on, and if they have to do a practical on-road test, they pass. So it's creating a lot of extra patients having to go through that process, and we've got fewer and fewer assessors around New Zealand to do the on-road test.
Right. Okay. So even if they could be tested, you'll say we're actually struggling for people that can test them.
Yes. Well, the NZTA assessors, licensed assessors, are not the same as the driving instructors who teach our young people to drive. NZTA tell me those people are not qualified to do an on-road safety test. So the ones who are qualified tend to be only in major cities and a few towns. So, for example, I live in Karikari. If someone there is failed by their doctor, they have to travel 45 to 55 kilometres into the city to have an assessment in an area they're not familiar with, going on a road which has plenty of roadworks on it, and quite, for those who just really drive around town, quite alarming, and then arrive stressed to try and do an on-road test. So it's creating unnecessary work for everyone and stress for our older people.
David, is it true, though, the NZTA does not mandate cognitive testing for elderly drivers? They maintain the use of that is left to the discretion of health practitioners. Is that right? So say a 75. Yeah. So when you turn 80, you don't by law have to take a cognitive test.
No, that's correct. And I would have to say doctors are in a difficult position because they have to make an assessment of patients they've known for years,
Yes.
and at times tell them that they really don't think they should continue driving. And we accept that. We do not want people who cannot drive safely on the road. But for the majority, they've got a good driving record, no accidents. They're not asked about that often by the doctor. Instead, they can't remember this address, and so they fail the test. Therefore, they're referred for an on-road driving test, which may be some distance away out of their locality, or they're sent to an occupational therapist, which will cost at least $800, and some of our people have paid $1,200 for that assessment.
Oh, dear me. Because when you're right, David, because I looked at the mini ACE test, which is used here, and you did touch on it. They ask questions like, what's the day, the date, the month, to remember a name and address, to name as many animals as possible in a minute. Heck, I'd fail this, David, on a bad day. I mean, what has that got to do with driving? I mean, it seems unusual.
It is, but I mean, if the doctor knows the patient and they think they do have early stage dementia, I have no problem with them utilising it for that reason. But to use it with everyone who comes in is just too much.